Could you say a little bit about what took place with In-N-Out Burger when all of what took place and how your group supported?
Oh, yeah, that was, well,
Forgot.
yeah, the In-N-Out Burger, we recruited, Rich Snyder was the president of In-N-Out Burger, and of course the owner, with his family. And I remember one of the guys telling me later, they weren't impressed. Here's this hamburger guy, who, and they didn't think they were gonna get anything out of it. Well, Rich hosted the meeting, and he took us around, and he would reach his hand in to some freshly ground beef, pull it out, taste it. He literally knew the business, knew everything. He was the quality, he knew everything about the quality. That was the big deal. Had to be quality and had to be training. And then he and so we had in our tech group, we discussed succession. You're so important in this organization, what happens if you die? And we had this discussion like, it was actually a discussion just before he actually died in a plane crash. So we had this discussion, and he said, not a problem. He said, I got my right-hand man who takes over everything if I die. And he was in the midst of buying his brother out and so on. And so I met with him, and the group, of course, the group is always on top of it. They said, do you guys always fly separately? He said, absolutely. We never fly together. We're always separate. So there's no chance both of us are going to be gone. Okay, so then I meet with him, and he's telling me about, he's negotiating with his brother, and the number difference seemed like a lot of money, but the company was worth an enormous amount. There's an argument between $1 million. His brother wanted 10 or 11, he wanted to give him 10. I said, Rich, that's nothing. I said, just do it, get it done. And so in the one-to-one, I said, so how's it coming? He said, well, the lawyers say we'll get it done after Christmas. I said, oh, okay. Of course, once they have a good client, they know how to extend extend it a long time. So I met with him, and then I was home, and I got a call from my son-in-law. He says, I heard that Rich Snyder was killed in an airplane crash. And what had happened is he'd gone up to Fresno, and I'd flown with him looking at locations for restaurants. And so it was just before Christmas, and so of course his mom, and I don't know why they were all together, but his mom is one of his key managers, and this guy, who was never supposed to fly, was going to wait for the next plane, and it was a private 2-engine plane. And Rich says, oh, come on, get on the plane. He said, we'll all be there. So they flew down, dropped off his mom and the manager, and then they were flying into Orange County Airport. They followed in on a large jet. Large jets have sort of a horizontal whirlwind trailing. And so the pilot, his pilot, came around, and the co-pilot says, aren't we a little close? And the pilot said, no, we're fine. And they pulled around in back of that jet, and whenever the whirlwind dropped, they were about 500 feet off the ground, and it just flipped them right into the ground instantly. And so then the company was up for grabs because it's owned by his brother and his mother then. And so it went through a really tough period. The company is successful, but the key was the group told him, asked him, I as his chair pushed him, but we just didn't get it done. But we almost did, but didn't quite.
Some amazing learning lessons, I think, from the experiences that you've had, the years that you've had working with your members, and the growth experiences. And I think it is in the stories.
Yeah.
The power of what happens, especially, and I think from one of you, I remember you were saying, probably 50 or 60% of the time, sometimes even more, the problem name is not the problem.
No.
And that when you dig deeper, you realize it's something totally
Yeah,
different.
it's seldom the problem.
Yeah.
One other thing about Rich, when I first met with him on the, signed him up, met with him on a one-to-one, because of my financial background, I said, so how is your stock held? He says, oh, it's in my name. I said, you don't have a will or trust? He says, no, I don't have will and trust. I said, well, our next one-to-one, we are meeting in the attorney's office, and you're gonna get that done. And so we did, because if that hadn't happened,
It'd been really.
it would have been really a mess, because that thing would have been in the courts for years, because when you got that much money on the line, man, at that time, I think he had 90 units. That thing was worth a lot
Yeah,
of
and I
money.
think something like 60–70% of the income of attorneys across the United States is on probate.
Yeah,
It's the single, I know it's the single largest source of income, so they're professionals, most of them, stretching it out, except for a few honest estate planning guys that'll teach you now, you don't want to get into probate, you need a living.
Yeah. It was interesting, I believe, because your group then helped his wife.
oh, yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, she actually came, met with the group. So, let me,
Yeah, a lot of, I realized the lives that a chair touches in so many ways. It, again, enhancing the lives is probably more important than why someone stays with the tech group. It's increasing effectiveness, right, but it really is about how we enhance not only their lives, but the lives of their employees.
Yeah, people around them.
I always kind of think of it as it's like a mist or fog or clouds that, you have your group, but then that affects their employees, and that affects their employees' families, and that affects relatives, and that affects, so the outreach of one tech group is amazing, and then when you think of all the groups
Thousands.
around the world, the effect that it has is just astonishing.
Yeah, the ripple, we have rippled in so many ways of changing lives. I look at it as it's almost a living philanthropy. I can sell my company and make the money, but at the same time, each company is living that out at that moment with the jobs that they give and the impact that they have on those families. And again, the learning that someone gets, if it really is a learning organization.
I was so moved by when we were going through the recession, and I'd be out visiting groups, and when I first joined tech, I was like, oh my God, CEOs, and they're all gonna be arrogant jerks, and then I got out and started meeting our members, and to see them when their businesses were taking a dive, and just the fretting and the losing sleep, and their employees were everything to them. It was just amazing to see what our members go through for their companies and for the people that work for them. And in many cases, they would find the answers to saving their companies by talking to their employees. So people who knew what was really going on in the business and involving their employees. And in many cases, I saw where the employees came up with the solutions to save.
Dan Wurtenberg talks about the same economic cloud is over everyone as time goes on. So I would be interested, knowing that and knowing what impact your groups have had and you've had on your people, because under that cloud, the fact that if we say, tech groups are 1.5 times more successful than other groups, what are some of the things that you saw as the chairs of those groups that made the difference for your members to be successful when the cloud was on these other people as it was going through?
Okay, well, My experience is when there was clouds, the value of the group was kind of what Fred's been talking about, that where's the opportunity in all this? Where's the opportunity as opposed to, oh my gosh, how do you hunker down and get through the cloud? Where's the opportunity? And if you've got a group of people around you you've known enough, long enough, you trust, have confidence in, you're gonna listen to them, and they'll give you emotional support as well as technical things you ought to do. And a great part of that is emotional support. If you're isolated by yourself and not around people like that, who you know and trust, have confidence in, you need that dimension, separate from, A and B do this. No, I want to give you emotional support.
And that they have trust in you
Trust
also,
in you.
even though
Yeah.
I may be doubting myself or all the other
Yeah.
kinds of
Yeah.
things that take place when I'm
I mean,
in
if you're going
fear.
through hell, I can get to be empathetic because I like you and been around you a long time and want to help you and not sit here and criticize you or make you feel like you ought to be in hell.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, the other thing is the group helps with the focus, because when you're
Yeah,
under a
it's true.
huge financial strain, it's like you're in what they call a whiteout, in a snowstorm, where you literally can't see. But the group helps clear away, make a little bit of space in that snowstorm to see, here are the things that are critical
Mhm.
to do to get back into the ranch, where you won't freeze to death out here. And that, I think, is a key issue. I love, Fred's opportunity focus, because that is really where it's at. But whenever nothing but lightning and rain is coming down, then you do have to figure out how do you get from point A to B to stay alive. And one of my members, I remember meeting with him every week, not every month, every week. And it was whenever we were using fax machines that used the old kind of paper that was the heat-sensitive paper. And so I'd meet with him, I'd say, what do you have to do to stay alive for one more week? I didn't know what he had to do. And he would stop and think about it, and he would give me 2 or 3 or 4 items they had to do. I'd go back to the office, I'd type those up, fax them to him, and then I'd meet with him the following week. I didn't know what he had to do. I had no idea. I wasn't in his business. All I did was ask the question, what is it you've got to do? It helped him to, clarify from the snowstorm, get back down, look at, here's what I gotta do. If I do this, if I can pull that off, I can stay alive. And that's what it took. And he did, he stayed alive. And he paid his fees. Called him back up again.
But you know how much faith, how much trust that a member in a situation like that, where I'm in a whiteout and I can't see and I'm just panicked and I can't make a decision and I'm just walking in circles. How much trust that person has to have in you and in your group
Sure.
to, when you say, come on, take my hand, this is the way we need to go, to actually follow through.
Well, that's part of the power of the group. It's very seldom that you find a specific situation that some member of the group hasn't been through before.
Absolutely.
And that's
Magic.
a real practical value of the group. There's always somebody that's been down that path or something very similar to it that can help you. And their help's always better than just going blind on